so it seems we got everything going the way it should be. I'm going to go ahead and have a look at the latest trailer for The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. The one that premiered at Comic-Con. Why? Because I can. Because I like to, and because it's fun. Right, Kitty? Kitty is sleeping. She's like, I can't be bothered with this. Be quiet, human.
With the war ended. Was
That looks like a lot of war right there.
Today, our days of peace.
It's so pretty to look
Begin.
at.
We thought our joys would be unending. We thought our light would never dim.
The skies are strange.
Uh-oh.
It is here, Galadriel. The moment we feared.
Palantir. Freaky.
Evil does not sleep. It waits.
Now, from what I've heard, we don't know specifically who this one character is supposed to be, who this dude is supposed to be. Some people think he's supposed to be Sauron, but I don't think so. I'm not quite sure who he's supposed to be. Because, if you remember, Sauron at the time was trying to convince the elves to help him create rings, specifically Celebrimbor. I can't see this particular guy convincing anybody to do anything for him. He's just kind of creepy. And it's like, no, that's not who Anatar was. I just don't know who this is. And it could be that he's kind of some kind of side bad guy. I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong about that completely. Could be wrong about who this guy is. He could be Anatar. I don't know at this point. It's interesting to speculate on who this might be, but I just don't know. I mean, if they're trying to create the beautiful version of Sauron who manipulated everybody into believing he was a good guy and helping him to create rings and stuff, this is not the guy I would have chosen. I mean, I'm sure he's a perfectly fine actor and everything, but still, it's an interesting choice, and I'm just not sure which character he's portraying. So it'll be interesting to see once the show gets going and once we figure out who everyone is and everything.
Waits.
Beyond the darkness, tempting shadow, to bury us all beneath the mountain.
He has not one name, but many.
Have you heard of him, lad? Have you heard of Sauron?
What? Ugh. What was that?
If the evil rising is left unchecked, it will take us all. Find the light, and the shadow will not find you. Together we can survive this! Fight with me.
Each of us must decide who we shall be.
All these trailers, they have like nice moments in them. This is really interesting.
There can be no trust between hammer and rock. Eventually, one or the other must surely break. I've been told many lies of Middle-earth.
Nice. Oh my god, Balrog! That's really cool. It's funny because if we're seeing a Balrog, that means that we are probably seeing the last days of Moria, the last days of Khazad-dûm. And the rock that they're finding, it's probably a big chunk of mithril because that's what they were mining down there, and it was the most valuable metal in Middle Earth was having mithril. And of course, there were little, you know, comments about it during the Lord of the Rings and everything, and about that coat of mail that Thorin gave to Bilbo, and then Bilbo gave it to Frodo, and was like extra strong and everything, but it was also incredibly valuable. And I think Gandalf said something to the effect of, it's more valuable than the entire Shire and everything in it and everything. So yeah, that's probably what they're finding in there. That's probably, you know, what's going on here. Which means this is probably happening pretty late in the Second Age. It's not something that's happening, you know, closer to the end of the First Age. It's more probably closer to the beginning of Third Age. But, you know, it's too bad they didn't have more Harfoots in this. More of the Harfoots. Because if there's one thing I want more of, I always want more of, because I can't get enough of hobbits. Uh, it would just be so nice if, you know, there were just little, like a little side series or something just about hobbits. Because I would watch that. I would pay to watch that. Anyway, yeah. And there are just so many weird people, they just don't understand the lore at all of Middle Earth. They're like, there were no hobbits in Middle Earth at the time. Well, yes, there were. There definitely were. There were the Harfoots. And they actually came from, if I remember correctly, let's see, I'm trying to get my map figured out in my head a little bit. They came from the Eregion side of the Misty Mountains, so they didn't have to cross the mountains to get to the area that would one day be the Shire. However, the Stewards and the Fellowhides did, because they came from along the Great River. So they at some point had to cross over the mountains. And Gollum and Smeagol, Smeagol and Deagle, you know, they came from one of those two groups. I believe they came from the Stores. And then, I'm not sure. Again, I'm trying to say all this off the top of my head. And my memory of maps is not always the most clear, but yeah, Smeagol Gollum was a Store. They came from over at the Great River. And yeah, I think people remember from the movies, you know, the little part at the beginning of The Return of the King where it kind of said where Gollum came from, the people he was from, where they were, what they were doing, kind of, a little bit. And of course there were little comments throughout The Lord of the Rings about, well, you know that Gollum, he used to be a hobbit and stuff. Which is kind of both true and not true, because the Stores, the Fellhides, the Harfoots, they were all precursors to the hobbits. But anyway, yeah. Whew. So anyway, it's cool to see Mr. Balrog again. I'm always thrilled to see him. And it's going to be really cool that we're going to be seeing him in this. because there's just very specific times in history that this moment could fit into. And in some ways, I think there are some people who don't understand that. But yeah, this is a specific moment in time. It's not like, you know, this didn't happen, because we already know from the Lord of the Rings that the Balrog was still there when Gandalf and the Fellowship passed through. So yeah, this is actually really cool, and kind of solidifies the time in which this is taking place. Because when did the Balrog first appear in Moria? We would just have to look it up and you know. Oh, okay, so that's the time period we're looking at. And there are other things kind of peppered throughout that are specific moments in time, like the Harfoots traveling. Well, the Harfoots traveling. I mean, they're going from where they were to where they will be. So, these are all just little snippets of time that will place this, that will solidly place this along the timeline of Middle Earth. So, actually, I think they've done a pretty good job at making this fairly specific to things that are happening in the world at the time. The complete story is not clear, but these are just trailers. It's not supposed to be clear from the trailers. It's just not. That's not the way trailers work. And there are of course some people complain, well, there's no story. Well, what's the plot? And it just makes me think, well, what do you know about Middle Earth? You know, what do you know about the time period? Or what you're seeing and where you could place it in that world? And to me it's pretty clear. To me it's very clear, because these are, as I said, specific moments, specific events, things that are definitely going to happen. They're not, you know, just randomly throwing shit out there. So, anyway, just thought I'd take a look at this because, once again, they presented some really cool stuff, some really cool visuals, things that are really pretty to look at, things that are interesting, things that make you go, huh? Huh? Who dat, and what are they doing, and, you know, what's going on and everything. But those are the questions you should be asking. They're not outlandish questions. So anyway, I'm still like this. I'm still excited for it. I just can't wait to see it. So that's all I have to say for this latest trailer. I'll probably if they do another one, I'll probably comment on that too. But for now, I think that's all the Lord of the Rings stuff. So I guess that is it. But I will say that I am really impressed so far. It just looks really cool. And, you know, there's always a chance that we're going to be disappointed, because we don't know at this point what this is going to be. But I'm just hoping, from what I've seen, that it is going to be good. It's going to be, you know, fun to watch at least. And I am optimistic. I'm always optimistic about these things. The only time I am not optimistic about things is when, you know, I finally see them and they just fall short of expectations. which is what kind of happened with another series that I was excited to watch. What was it? The Shannara Chronicles. Because at first I couldn't watch it because it was on MTV for some reason. I don't know why they would choose to put their show on that channel. It's such a specific, kind of story for a specific group of fans, and why they wouldn't put it on like sci-fi or a streaming service or something. It just didn't make sense to me at the time that they chose to put it on. I was sure it was on MTV for that first season. And then I think for the second season they changed over to something else. But yeah, I remember being excited to watch it, watching the first episodes because they showed them for free on YouTube, like the first two episodes. And even at that point, I wasn't too incredibly impressed with it because it wasn't extremely hyped, but was like, oh yeah, this is a cool fantasy show. They're filming it in New Zealand. It's gonna have some cool vibes to it and everything. And that just did not happen. Literally almost about everything. Literally almost everything about was underwhelming. I mean, by the time you get about mid-season, every recognizable part of the story that you might have had from the original books is just gone. It's like they took the canon of the stories and just threw it out the window and decided, no, we're gonna do our own shit. And it's like, nah, that's not what I signed up for. That's not what I signed up for. That's not what I'm interested in. One show I will say that I did enjoy, that I guess a lot of people didn't so much, but once again, it's another fantasy show that was filmed in New Zealand, and I was very excited for it. But Legend of the Seeker was actually really, really good. I enjoyed it quite a bit because I think, despite being somewhat limited in budget, they actually stayed reasonably close to the story, reasonably true to the characters that were in the books, and it had a very fun vibe to it. You would sit through it, you would say, this is funny, this is campy, this is fun. It did get a bit dark sometimes, but other than that, it was just fun to watch. But of course, that was another one that was, I believe it was produced by Sam Raimi. I can't remember. And of course, he's the same one who did Xena, and I guess he do Hercules? I can't remember. I can't remember these things sometimes. But it just has that tone. It has the fun tone to it. Of so many of those things that you saw coming out of New Zealand in the 90s, like Xena and some of those other things. But yeah, that one impressed me. Shannara did not. But I'm just hoping that this is going to be one of those things. This Lord of the Rings show is going to be one of those things. It's like, yeah, it's staying pretty true to things. It's fun to watch. It's cool. It's got cool visuals and everything. And I'm just hoping that it's going to be good. So that's all we can do at this point, and yeah, I guess that's it. Okay, bye for now.